Okay, well, we are going to get started. It's about 6:29, so I'm going to start a couple of seconds early and just wanted to say welcome, first and foremost. That's number one. And then number two, thank you guys so much for, maintaining as much social distance as possible in these times and, kind of maintaining your distance within your family group. Really appreciate that. We know it's a different year, right? And normally we would be doing this because of social distancing protocol in the STC auditorium, but we are double booked tonight. So because of the snow and ice, the theater department's, the fine arts department's production of Little Women had to be rescheduled, and this was one of the nights that they rescheduled. So our presenters, our seniors, decided that they were ready to go tonight, and they wanted to do it, and they have been waiting for a really long time, these 5 young ladies, to get this done. And so they, they were determined. So we said, you know what, let's do it in the Commons, which we have done in years past, and it provides a little bit more of an opportunity to be close to one another, but we ask that you not do that. Don't be close to one another. So just keep your distance and as much as possible, and thank you all for wearing masks, and thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to get underway with our 3rd night of scholars presentations. So as we do with all events at Bishop Kelly, I would like to start with prayer. Let us remember that we are in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of all, we give you thanks for the occasion to gather this evening. We are grateful for the gifts you have given us and for the opportunity to be part of the Bishop Kelly community. You have generously blessed these students, Katie, Ellie, Elizabeth, Maggie, and Aaron. Touch their hearts so that they use their talents for the benefit of others and guide their path as they become the people you call them to be. We offer this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Mary, Queen of Peace, pray for us. St. John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. Our first presenter of the evening is Katie Ewell. Katie is the daughter of Pat Fahey and David Ewell. At Bishop Kelly, Katie is the Student for Life president, a Comet ambassador, and a published author through her internship with the BK Philanthropy Department. She's a member of NHS and was a leader on Kairos 111. In the Tulsa community, Katie is a member of the Diocese of Tulsa Youth Senate, attends Church of the Madeleine, and likes to volunteer at Catholic Charities, stating that no matter the job, she feels like she's helping. Her hobbies include watching and theorizing about Marvel movies, baking, and getting boba tea with her friends. Katie applied to TU, OSU, Missouri S&T, Arkansas Tech, Benedictine, Catholic University of America. I like your list. She hopes to attend TU or Benedictine and study mechanical engineering. Very different from the theme of her project, as you will see. She's got 2 sides to her. So, ladies and gentlemen, Katie Ewell.
The mechanical engineering is liable to change. I'd like to put that out there now, but now that's the plan. Okay, so Essence of Night, the novella. I had the idea for this story first in 6th grade. I wrote a short story that I actually entered in the creative writing contest that Bishop Kelly hosts for middle school writers, and it was considerably different back then. For one thing, it took place in a completely different environment. Pretty much the only thing that is the same now is the title. Everything has changed. But writing brings me so much joy, just kind of releasing that creativity. Ernest Hemingway once said, if you see that up there, there's nothing to writing. All you do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. Because it's a part of you. You're taking out a part of yourself and putting it on the paper for people to read. There's a vulnerability in that, but there's also a joy in that. So, speaking of vulnerability, I have a smidgen of my story that I'm going to go ahead and read to you guys. So this is from the first chapter of my story. There was a palpable tension in the water, as though something was pushing at her mind. Nikora warily made her way out of her cave and into the surrounding abyss. Although her eyes were better suited to the darkness, It was still difficult for her to see at this depth, so she summoned a witch light to follow her. Swimming through the abyss, there were no creatures to be seen anywhere. The tension grew, along with her unease. Few natural creatures could be found this deep, but the ones that made the abyss their home were not generally timid. Something must have been amiss for them to hide away. Her stomach curdled with dread as she approached the edge of the abyss, the shimmer of the magical barrier visible in the glow of her witchlight. No, it could not be, she thought desperately. It has not even been a decade. Stopping directly in front of the barrier, Nikora gazed into the pitch-black darkness of the trench. Within its depths dwelled the most terrifying and bloodthirsty creatures known, plus a great many that were unknown. Thrashing her tentacles in agitation, she paced beside the barrier of the trench. The longer she remained there, the greater her sense of danger grew. Gathering her courage, she tentatively placed her left palm against the barrier and sent a wave of her power rippling over its surface. Thank you. I'm gonna hold this. Okay, so if you couldn't gather from the fact that they're underwater and there's mermaids, this is a fantasy story. Fantasy is my favorite genre. I've been reading it my entire life. The first fantasy series I remember reading was The Chronicles of Narnia, which I read with my parents. My mom read to us every night to kind of wind down before bed, and we'd read like a chapter of The Chronicles of Narnia. And I just remember that so clearly, and it kind of, starting there, my love of fantasy, love of reading, just continued. So in this story, the only character that you met in that little fraction is Nikora Hyranea, and she is the banished crown princess of her kingdom. She lives in what is called the Abyss. So I chose that from the abyssal plane. So you have like the main seafloor, the abyssal plane, and then the trenches, like the Mariana Trench, which we are incapable of exploring at this point. So that's a little terrifying. But she was banished to the abyss. She can't be around other merfolk. She can't be in the city. And this happened because of a crime that she was framed for, which you will have to read the story to find out what it is. No spoilers. So then Vaitiare, who you didn't meet, is her younger sister, who is currently ruling as queen in Nikora's place, since she has been banished. So their parents died, and that's kind of part of the fuel. Her mother was the former queen, and that is a lot of what fuels Nikora. She is very worried that she'll never be able to live up to what her mother set before her in keeping track of all those monsters that she's trying to protect her people from, even though that they have abandoned her and banished her. And then the dyad, you wouldn't really have heard about in that section, but they're the two main deities that the merfolk worship. Again, fantasy, and with that came a love of mythology, so then I made it my own and put that in the story. And then the Kaidashni are a type of sea creature. They're kind of like dragon snake things that live in the abyss and that meet Nakora later on and help her kind of restore her place within her kingdom. And then the Sea Daemon is that last voice you heard in the section I read, and it is the main antagonist of the story. Okay, so there's what I already told you a bit about. I love reading. I feel like that bit's kind of obvious already. I read Harry Potter, Narnia, and The Lord of the Rings with my family. That we continued on from Narnia. We kept going. My first story I ever wrote was titled Silvera. It never actually was completed. And that was after having read The Chronicles of Narnia, and I really liked the concept of pirates and magical creatures and magical woods and nymphs. And so a lot of it kind of tied into that. And Silvera was a pirate who wore all pink and was friends with all the magical creatures and rode on a Pegasus. So I've matured a little bit in my character creation. She didn't have much of a backstory. She was just a pirate that wore pink. And so as I said before, I wrote The Original Essence of Night in 7th grade, and I got 3rd place here at the Creative Writing Contest. But this is a completely different story than it was then, and I would like to say it is much improved, but I don't know who would be the judge of that. So when I started writing this, I was aiming for about 30 pages. It needed to be equivalent to the amount of work that all my classmates were putting into their amazing projects. So 30 pages was about my goal. I considered publishing at the end, but I realized that there's a lot more I could probably do with this story, a lot more improvements that can be made, and just improvements to my writing style in general. So I decided against publishing. And then my last goal is to have it completed and bound by Christmas, which it was completed by Christmas, but I did not have it printed and bound. That will probably happen in the future, though, because I would like to have evidence that I made this. Okay, so successes and failures. For the most part, it was pretty good. It was initially going to be a collection of short stories, and I decided on a theme of kind of ocean and water-related folklore. But I wasn't really coming up with enough ideas for that. I had about 3 stories in mind, and this was one of them. It was initially going to be considerably shorter. And I really got latched on to this concept, especially my main character, Nakora. I really liked the idea I had for that, kind of the storyline. I realized I could probably make that a lot longer just on its own than trying to write a bunch of short stories that maybe I didn't have enough ideas for. So I settled on that, decided to write a novella, still aiming for about the 30 pages. And I wasn't really producing it as fast as I wanted to, as fast as I needed to get this project done, because we did have deadlines. So 2nd quarter, I had an empty block, and I was able to schedule a research kind of session block, and I sat in the library 4th block every day, and I just worked on my story. That's all I had to do. And it was really helpful because Miss Abood, our librarian, was my mentor, so I was able to take stuff to her and be like, hey, is this any good? Does this make sense when you read it, or is it just in my head? So that was really helpful for getting my story down on paper, for one thing, and then having somebody else who also enjoys fantasy fiction and who knows what she's talking about read over everything. So as I said, I completed this just prior to Christmas, and I mean just prior, like the Saturday before. And as I said, a little difficulty with printing, and I also decided that before I had it printed and bound and all of my precious materials sent away to a outside company, thought maybe I should get a copyright, because this is really important to me. This is a part of me that I have created, and I don't want something to accidentally happen to it or get plagiarized. So copyright, then print. Even if I never publish it, I would like to have that security. So some skills I learned, as well as something other people should maybe know going into a project similar to this, is that you need to have discipline. I am not always good at setting deadlines for myself, and that proved to be detrimental to my productivity, which is part of the reason why I had to have that 2nd quarter research block, because I wasn't working at a good pace, and that was mostly my own fault. So having discipline when going into this, setting deadlines for yourself and sticking to them, good idea. Getting feedback from other people. I had some friends, Elizabeth, my friend Joey, who might be watching. Hi, Joey. they're also into fantasy fiction, and they read over it for me and gave me critiques on grammar, because naturally you're going to make grammar mistakes. And just on the story, like, does this make sense? Is this character too rigid? Are they relatable? Is there anything that could be improved? So getting their feedback was very helpful. In any kind of project, it's good to hear from outside sources. Organization, I put all of my ideas down on one document. All of my ideas for characters, settings, names. I like to have kind of purpose behind every character's name, and I kept that all in one place. And that's really good, because in the past, I will have a notebook over here, a Google Doc, a random piece of paper on my nightstand, and then I might have great ideas, but then I lose them. So staying organized is very helpful. And then patience. Sometimes you don't have ideas. Even I might have the overall story idea, but I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what it's going to sound like, how to get it out of my head. And sometimes that was really frustrating, because I wanted to get the story that was in my head on a paper where other people could experience it. So sometimes I had to sit back and be like, okay, it'll come, it'll get out there. So patience, definitely important. And then heart. Like I said with that quote from Ernest Hemingway at the beginning, there's nothing to writing. All you have to do is sit down in front of a typewriter and bleed. So that, like I said, that is a part of you. So that vulnerability is good, but it can also be stressful. So, but just, if you love what you do and you want other people to share in that joy and love that you have for what you do, then putting your heart into it can get you a long ways. So as I said, I don't plan to publish it as it is now. I think there's a lot I could do with it. I'm satisfied, for the most part, for having completed it for this project, but I have ideas for how it could be expanded, maybe even into a full novel or two. And I don't want to be derailed by premature publication. I think if I published it now, as it was, with all the improvements that could be made and the immaturity of my writing, I'm relatively new to this, so I think it'd be harder if I tried to publish it now, then improve it and publish it later, so I do not want to do that. Stories. This is part of what I wrote my paper on that we all had to do. I talked about how to write character development, but I also talked about how stories are important. So writing inspires people. Maybe it's not fantasy fiction like I like to read. Maybe it's reading history of our country, history of other countries. Memoirs, things that have happened to specific people. It can inspire you to do better. It can inspire you to do something specific. For me, reading fantasy inspired me to write fantasy because I loved those stories and I wanted to share my own stories with other people. Stories, especially fiction, can serve as an escape from reality and a connection to other people. When I've read a book that one of my other friends has read, Elizabeth, can talk to you on this, we've read a lot of the same books, then talking to them about it, bonding with them over it, talking about our favorite characters, the favorite things that happen, maybe the cliffhanger at the end of the last one and what we think will happen next. It's just such a great way to connect. That's how I've made some friends. And stories can be shared across generations and nations and cultures. So many of the most popular books in our country have been published in other languages and can be shared. And with the internet now, obviously there's a lot more communication, so you can bond with strangers over this amazing work that you've loved. Or mythology, Greek mythology. It's not America. It was around way before America, but we see it and we know it. And we take inspiration from it and we think it's cool. And stories are bridges, like I said. You have something, you share it with somebody else that connects you. That can make a friendship, that can just be somebody to talk to. And just having kind of shared experiences as humans, we like that. We like having connections with other people. And if stories can form those connections and kind of enrich your life and friendships. So my thank yous, my parents, obviously. They've been very supportive of my creative tendencies, my lots of reading, taking me to the library a lot when I was a kid and reading to me. Miss Abood, who was my mentor and really helped me be motivated to keep working, and she helped me improve my story. Miss Tyler and Miss Bendel, who have been running and mentoring for us seniors for our scholars projects. Miss Tyler, who runs the whole program. Miss Yannick, one of the English teachers, she read through my whole story. I just asked her if she would, and she said, sure, I'd love to. And she, like Joey and Elizabeth, helped fix my grammar, tell me when things didn't make sense. There's a lot of grammar mistakes in there, let me tell you. And like I said, my friends, especially Joey and Elizabeth, and then my friend Tanya, who does not go here, so none of you know her, but she illustrated some of my characters for me when I told her about my story, which is really cool. I wanted to be able to show it on here, but I wasn't able to get it to work. So you can just imagine. There's a picture up there. All right, and that is my project, my story. Do you have any questions? If you don't, that's fine. Yes, I think I don't delve into her backstory a lot in here. I did a little bit initially, and then it didn't work in the time frame that I had. But yes, I think in the future I could make this a lot longer. I could do more of her backstory, maybe take a little longer before the plot is revealed, kind of add some tension. And maybe if I can make it long enough, it could be 2 books, and I could have a cliffhanger in there to torture people, because that's always fun. So yes, I do plan on making it longer if I keep working with it. Erin. Working on. I like researching. There's a lot of, it's fantasy, so this isn't real life. I don't need to look at history. But, like, I had to learn about how the ocean works. It's like, well, how deep could they go before the ribs would be crushed? Okay, that low, okay, we're good. And that's where I chose the names Abyss and Trench, because I learned about the actual levels of our ocean. So I did take that. And I like to have a lot of meaning behind my names. So Nikora is either Tahitian or Maori, I don't remember which, for victory, which is kind of ironic from most of the story and then makes sense towards the end. But yeah, research can be really fun. You learn some neat things and it helps tie it into the story. All right. All right. I am looking into that. I texted my dad, who is a lawyer, and I said, Father, what do you know about copyright law? He said, what do you want to plagiarize? And I'm like, no! No, I just want to copyright my own stuff. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I don't know how that works yet, but we're in the process. Emma. Oh, yeah, I suppose if you're interested, then all of you are related to one of my friends. So ask your child, and then they will get to me. And then somehow you will get a copy if for some reason you're interested in reading the rest of my story. And then you guys all have my phone number. So. Okay. That's all I've got for you then.
Having clearly slight technical difficulties today. So, Katie, excellent transition work to just keep going and come right back to it. The same thing could happen, presenters, at any point in time to the Chromebook. It might stop Chromecasting. So I'm here for technical assistance. That's normally not my job at all, but I can get through what we're doing tonight. So. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Katie. And I can attest to what Katie said about, the books connecting you. I can remember the first scholars trip that I had the opportunity to go on was to Memphis, which is quite a drive from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Katie and Elizabeth and Beverly Riley and I had probably about a 2-hour book club on the bus, discussing all the books that we'd read in common and making suggestions to each other, and it was a grand old time. So I can attest to Katie's love of reading and how it connects you to one another. So our next presenter is Ellie Spielman. Ellie is the daughter of Jenny and Jeff Spielman. Ellie takes advantage of a lot of the opportunities and activities that Bishop Kelly has to offer. Here we go. She is a senior captain of the varsity softball team, a senior captain of the speech and debate team, where she's qualified for nationals and was a state finalist. She's a captain of the mock trial team and the co-president of the investment club. She's a member of STUCO, a Comet ambassador, a member of NHS, a member of the photography club, chemistry club, and French club. She is designated an AP Scholar with honors. This past summer, Ellie volunteered on the String Lake Patrol in Grand Teton National Park. In her free time, which is when, I don't know, but in her free time, she enjoys doing anything that is outdoorsy. So hiking, riding Fletcher, her horse, snow skiing, kayaking, wakeboarding, and running. Ellie's top 3 schools to which she has applied are Georgetown, Notre Dame, and Columbia. In the fall, she plans to study economics and political science. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellie Spielman.
Good evening, I'm Ellie Spielman, and if people came with warning labels, mine would be I talk too quickly. I am a debater, and I try to cram as many words as possible into one breath, so if I speak too quickly tonight, I apologize ahead of time. The best way to introduce you to my project is to share an anecdote with you. The summer of my junior year, I was working on my project, and I ran out of film while I was on vacation. There was a camera store in downtown Jackson Hole, and I figured while they probably wouldn't have my favorite color film, they'd have some basic Kodak film. So I rode my bike downtown, and the kid behind the counter, when I asked him for film, he said, "What's film?" Now this reaction isn't just an isolated event. Film photography really is a dying art. I had to order all of my film online. You can't find it at Walgreens or Walmart anymore. I bought my camera from a British seller on Etsy, and I got all of my developing equipment on eBay. The fact is, film photography, like many things, has become obsolete with the progression of technology. And that's one of the things that really drew me to this project. The world just doesn't fit conveniently into the format of a 35mm camera. Smith was right. You can't capture everything. You can't encapsulate human emotion or all the greatness of natural beauty on film. But film comes a lot closer to capturing everything than digital photography does. One thing I learned throughout my project was that film really does capture the smallest details. For example, in this picture, I thought I had just snapped a picture of pretty scenery. But after I developed it, I was looking at it, and I thought I had done something wrong because there were these little odd white specks in the middle of the photograph. I showed my granny, and she said, "They look almost like deer." So I got out my magnifying glass, and sure enough, they were pronghorn. Under the magnifying glass, they were as clear as if they were the main subjects of the picture. Now, if the picture had been digital, the more you would have zoomed in, the more pixelated they would have become, and they wouldn't have become nearly as clear as they are on film. So I started my project by shooting black and white film. That's the easiest type of film to shoot. It's much more forgiving to beginners, which was really nice. It's especially forgiving when it comes to developing. I shot 3 rolls of black and white film over the course of my project, and I mostly focused on landscape scenes. You'll see that's a common theme as I go through some of my pictures. I discovered that mountainscapes I really have a preference for when it comes for black and white because it really highlights the difference between the snow and the rock, which gives the picture more depth. This was my favorite black and white mountainscape. This is Grand Teton National Park. The picture was actually taken in the National Forest, but that's where the best view of the National Park actually is, if you want my official park ranger opinion. However, some of the pictures I found that color film actually works better. I really wish this one I had been able to take in color. I think the colors and patterns on the shirts would have popped much more if I had taken it on color film instead. One of the most interesting things I learned while studying the history of photography was the different kinds of image manipulation, which you wouldn't actually think about when considering film. And one of this was actually specifically the photo suppression during the civil rights movement. So for instance, this is a typical photo of a civil rights movement you would find in a history textbook. You can see that it's in black and white. And this is the actual photo. Many of the photos that were taken during this time period were originally taken in color. Over the years, there have been many claims that photos from the civil rights movements that were originally taken in color have been changed to black and white to make them appear older. You see this a lot in history textbooks that are in classrooms. However, the general consensus among historians is that the lack of color photographs from the era in publications is partly due to economic constraints. It was slightly more expensive to buy color film, to develop it in color and print it in color. Most newspapers didn't actually start printing in color until decades after the civil rights movements. In fact, in 1979, only 12% of newspapers printed some of their photos in color. However, like I said, most of the history textbooks that we see in classrooms today have very few, if any, photographs from this era in color. I thought that was really interesting, and that was something that I learned. After shooting black and white film, I moved to color film, which was easily my favorite part of this project. I didn't develop any of the color pictures myself because the process is more complicated and requires more chemicals, so I found a local photography place that develops the film in-house. Walgreens still does actually develop film, but they send it off to a mass development site, which results in lower quality prints. From all my research, I discovered that it's much better to find somewhere local that has people who actually develop it instead of machines, and that they do it in-house. I used Aperture's photo, which is really close to here. The people are great. I'm by far the youngest person in there, so they love to talk to me about my project. My favorite aspect of color film is sunsets. This is a picture that I actually took from my back porch, and in reality, the sunset was pretty average. It wasn't spectacular or anything, but it turns out great on color film. Part of that is also the color film that I use. My favorite color film is EKTAR 100, which is best for sunsets and landscapes, as it's known to produce more pastel colors when it's developed. Another thing I like about color film is the way it captures sun flares and shadows, as you can see in this picture of Chicago. Black and white film doesn't always show shadows the best, and sun flares make the center of the print appear to be overexposed. It kind of creates like a white spot in the middle of the photo. So you couldn't get a picture like this on black and white film. The center where you see the main sun flare would be totally overexposed. You wouldn't be able to see any of it. And the side where it's a little bit darker, you wouldn't get any depth. It would just kind of be a black spot. So it's really cool that you can get photos like this on film color, or on color film. Finally, I wanted to experiment with a type of distressed developing. Distressed development really brings art and photography together, which was something I was interested in when pursuing this project. With distressed developing, you end up with kind of abstract photography. The most common way to achieve this effect is either to burn parts of your film or soak it in something that's very acidic or basic, so you get some nice chemistry in there. These are from one of my favorite photographers who experiments with this. He's actually a chemist and does photography on the side, and these two prints are from his series that's titled Bleached. He used coffee vinegar, soap, hydrogen peroxide, and oven cleaner to distress his negatives, and it turned out with these really cool abstract prints. I wanted to do something similar, but I couldn't bring myself to destroy all my negatives, and I wanted to do something with my leftover black and white developing chemicals, so I kind of came up with a compromise between the two. Those were his photos, by the way. This one's mine. It's not nearly as good. During my research for my paper sophomore year, I had come across two other styles of developing that were really similar to this. Chemograms, which experiments with exposure to light at different points in time, and a developing style that swaps out traditional chemicals for household cleaners that have similar chemical compositions. And I decided to try and combine these two methods to achieve something similar to a distressed print. And after a lot of practice, I think I got pretty close. The main difference is mine isn't as colorful, but that's most likely due to the fact that the photo paper I used was for black and white prints and not colored prints. With this print, I put Fixer and Developer, the two basic chemicals, into the developing process into spray bottles and sprayed them on the photo paper, and that's kind of where you see the dotted and running effect. This one is black and white. I didn't have any other kind of chemicals. You can see the little bit of pink from it, and that's actually from some lemon juice and its reaction to the photons in the photo paper. This one I did something similar. I used fixer and developer in spray bottles. I exposed the paper to light beforehand, and then I sprayed some more chemicals on there. It was actually really fun. I don't recommend doing this in an enclosed space for long periods of time like I did. I had a massive headache after. That was not very smart on my part. On this one was really fun. I used an enlarger to superimpose an image of a redbud tree from one of my rolls of black and white film. I actually exposed the paper twice to kind of achieve this double exposure look, and then I went back to my spray bottles and sprayed developer and fixer on it before soaking it in developer, fixer, and then a water bath. This part of my project should have been the easiest because there were literally no rules, but I am a person who loves structures and rules, so for me it was actually the hardest part of my project. Ms. Tyler knows I got very frustrated with this part because it wouldn't turn out just how I wanted it to, and I couldn't control it. So it was not the funnest part of my project for me. So my project actually all started with Polaroids. I got a Polaroid camera for Christmas my freshman year, and I took that thing everywhere with me. Over the course of 4 years, I probably took about 200 Polaroids. Polaroids first introduced the concept of instant photography in the late 1940s. The Polaroid was revolutionary and helped transform the photographic medium. Instant film completely cut out the wait time that is associated with traditional film, so you no longer had to wait for film to be developed to see your prints. You could get it instantly, which, if you ask me, is kind of where the whole decline in film photography started. Why would you want to wait a week when you could have it instantly? Here's some more of my Polaroids. Despite Polaroid's popularity in the second half of the 20th century, the company actually filed for federal bankruptcy protection in 2001. And the art of instant photography looked like it had expired in 2008 when the company announced that it would be ceasing production of their analog film products. Some more. However, over the last 10 years, instant film has really made a comeback. You can now get pretty much any kind of Fujifilm in Walmarts and most drugstores. Walgreens carries them. It's very popular with my generation now. Not all of my photos turned out exactly as I planned. Some were overexposed, some were underexposed, among other things. The black and white one on the far right, I bumped the enlarger while I was superimposing it on the paper, so it looks extremely shaky. The photo in the middle, I didn't realize that I was on my last negative of the roll, so I took 2 pictures on it, and it is double exposed, not on purpose. However, sometimes the unexpected or mistakes turn out to be the best pictures, actually. So, for example, renowned photographer Mark Power witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall by mistake, and his photographs of the event are actually some of the most recognized today. That goes to show the importance of film photography. Film photography has captured some of the most important moments in history and has made them accessible to everyone, regardless of whether or not you experienced the event yourself, regardless of whether or not you were even alive at the time that the event occurred. Finally, as Brother Bernardine said, to act is easy, to think is hard. And I would like to thank the people who have always challenged me to think and who have helped me when that was really hard. Thank you, Ms. Tyler, for always being able to answer my questions, big or small. Thank you to Ms. Morgan, who was instrumental in helping me complete my research paper. Thank you to Mr. Aronson for his great advice, which generally consisted of just don't blow yourself up. Classic Aronson. Thank you to Ms. Bindle, Mr. Hembry, and Mr. Manning for all of their helpful advice the past 4 years. The floor is now open to questions. Yes. Instant film definitely has become more popular. I know a lot of people who have Polaroid cameras, but basic film, especially black and white film, I haven't met anyone else, regardless of age, who still takes film photography or who even has a film camera. Yes. Well, I've been taking photos for actually more than the past 4 years. So my Polaroids probably started in middle school, so I have a lot of those. My Polaroids are normally of my animals, my horse Fletcher and my dog Walton. The black and white film, like I said, I love how mountains look on black and white films, so I took a majority of those in Grand Teton National Park, which I go to in the summer. There are a few from Mount Rushmore. My family has a thing for national parks, so national parks is definitely a theme in there. For color film, I like cityscapes better. You just get more vivid colors and pops of colors, so those were anywhere we went on vacation. Chicago, New York. I have some DC photos on film, but I haven't developed that role yet. Yes. It is. That's part of what I did for my research paper. I talked a lot more about the chemistry in my research paper. I focused more on the chemistry of developing and light's reaction when the camera lens opens, how the light reacts with photons to create that image, but I would definitely like to learn more about instant Polaroids and their chemistry. It is. Jamie. It's actually not that expensive for black and white development. Let me qualify that. For black and white development, you just need a developer and a fixer, which are two chemicals. They come in about like a 4-quart bottle, but the composition of chemical to water is like one part chemical to 14 parts water, so you get a lot out of those. It's probably like $10 to $15 for a bottle of chemical. I only had to buy one, and I still have a ton left over. My darkroom was my garage plus all of my equipment. I'm probably going to sell my enlarger because it's taking up a ton of space in my closet now that I'm done with it. So hopefully someone else is doing a capstone project or interested in film photography. Right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Okay. Moving on to our third presentation of the night. I'll wipe everything down. Make sure that's the right slide. Okay. All right. So our third presenter, let me wipe this off before I start talking. Okay. Our third presenter of the night is Elizabeth Say. Elizabeth's parents are Richard and Sarah Say. Elizabeth is an integral member of the robotics team, qualifying last year as one of only 3 students in Oklahoma for the Dean's List Finalist Award at the robotics competition. She's a link crew leader. She's a member of Boom Club, which I didn't know was a thing. Book Club. It was typed boom on your thing. I was like, what? I even asked Ellie and Anna. I was like, what is Boom Club? And they were like, I've never heard of that. Okay, book club makes much more sense. Yes, okay. So she is a member of Book Club and Spanish Club. Elizabeth, I can tell you from experience, always has a book in her bag. And when there is a free second, it is out and on her desk and she is reading. She is also currently teaching herself Scottish Gaelic. Her favorite location to volunteer, shouldn't surprise you, is the Feral and Domestic Animal Rescue, hint, hint. She's a parishioner at Christ the King. In the fall, Elizabeth hopes to attend Missouri University of Science and Technology and study engineering, but metallurgical engineering. Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Elizabeth Say.
right. Good evening. So every year, about 3.3 million dogs enter United States animal shelters. Only half of these are adopted, and this figure also does not include nonprofit rescue groups throughout the country. And according to fourth grade NAEP test scores, more than 25 million students cannot read at the proficient level. In Oklahoma, 71% of our students are not at the proficient level. Both of these figures are very high, but how are they connected and how can we lower them? So canine-human interdependence first surfaced over 40,000 years ago. Think about it. We hardly go a day without seeing a dog, whether it's your neighbor walking their dog on the sidewalks or in a park, or if you see a little furry head sticking its way out of a car window on your way to work. But why are our species so dependent on each other? Well, over the centuries, we have formed a symbiotic relationship. And other than being pets and companions, dogs often work in different fields in our society. Whether that's as a therapy dog, service dog, in the military, canine units, search and rescue, we see dogs everywhere. But dogs also provide both mental and physical healing. Sorry, extra time on the video just in case I... So oxytocin is a hormone in the brain that produces positive emotions in many species, including both people and dogs. By increasing oxytocin levels in the brain and promoting exercise, dogs are able to relieve stress and anxiety, which is part of the reason I have my dog Prim here today. Dogs are also able to reduce PTSD symptoms. They're a calming presence. They can actually predict panic attacks or painful flashbacks and interrupt those. And dogs are also known to relieve symptoms of depression. She's a little camera shy. But we're not the only ones to receive something out of this relationship, hence why it's symbiotic. We are able to provide emotional supports for our dogs and provide them an established place in society. Dog owners can also provide physical contact to their dogs to improve their positive emotional state. According to the University of Helsinki's Canine Mind Project, they wanted to answer the question of how dogs react to different human emotions. So they ran 2 tests, one where they showed a group of dogs smiles and happy human faces, and another where they showed them more angry faces, like frowns or a person yelling. And they actually measured the change in a dog's pupil size to determine how dogs react. And their conclusions were actually pretty surprising. Dogs actually react better to human smiles than they do to present and immediate dangers. So if you're yelling at the dog, it probably won't respond as well as if you're like, "Oh, good boy." Dogs also form a pack-like mentality with their families, which helps them improve their self-esteem, and it gives them a purpose. They will protect their families if any danger comes to them. But while we may be able to separate our human society from animals such as cows, pigs, cats, those animals haven't really made a huge impact on our society. Like, they're there, we see them around. But dogs, it would be almost like throwing them to their predecessors, the wolves. Now, earlier today, I passed out stuffed dogs, dog toys, to the other presenters. And I'm performing a little experiment. So I just discussed how dogs help relieve stress and anxiety.
So I will ask those who have already presented, how did having that stuffed animal help before you present? I kind of dropped the ball on that one, but so did it kind of help a little bit? And then so yeah, those who have not presented, is it kind of helping with your? I know it's not a real dog, but is it helping a little bit with your stress for later tonight? Okay, good. So now I'm going to move on to more of the physical aspect of my project. I started a reading program for elementary school students where they come and read to rescue dogs. Now, my motivation for this project started at a very young age, where I've always loved reading, and so I wanted to incorporate that in my project somehow. But I've also always I've always loved animals, and part of that is due to my grandma, who's here tonight. She works for Feral and Domestic Animal Rescue, which is a local rescue group that they mainly deal with cats, but the occasional dogs. So I've gotten to see the rescue process from the animal coming in to the animal going to finding their forever home. So that's inspired me to focus on rescue dogs with this project rather than therapy dogs. So it kind of pains me to see dogs that are unable to live such a carefree life when they're not in a good home, and also children who struggle with reading even the most basic of sentences, such as the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So my original idea for this project came from watching TV. It was a 3-second clip in the background, and the idea kind of just stuck in my head. So I researched similar programs within the United States, and I found the Shelter Buddies, which these are images from the Shelter Buddies program, which is based in Missouri with the Humane Society of Missouri. So both parties benefit from this program. The kids are able to practice reading out loud, which helps them grow in confidence with reading out loud, because even standing up here, I know Katie was a little nervous reading aloud, but people have a tendency not to want to read aloud. But it helps build confidence and self-esteem. But the students are also able to read to a non-judgmental audience. Now that might seem weird because we would want to know if we're doing something wrong or pronouncing something wrong. But if you're trying to learn how to read, it might take you 5 minutes to read a sentence and you're just struggling and sounding out each letter individually. But if you have somebody over your shoulder constantly correcting you, it can dissuade you from reading. So by reading in front of a dog that just wants you there with them, to pet them, to love on them, you don't have that. Kids get to figure it out themselves. But the dogs also receive some benefits from this program. They become more personable and more comfortable around kids who are usually noisy and move around a lot. And most dogs are a little skittish around loud noises and lots of motion. So it helps the dogs become more used to that, and also larger crowds. Now, one of the most important lessons I learned from this project was not how to communicate with large groups or how to set up different events. Rather, it was how to overcome any obstacles that stand in the way of my goals. Brother Bernardine once said, "If you don't learn to laugh at trouble, you won't have anything to laugh at when you grow old." Well, I'll have plenty to laugh at because I had lots of walls I ran into when starting this program. But I'm proud to say that if I had given up back then, when I first started, I wouldn't be standing here today. My first step in setting up this program was to get kids involved, see if they wanted to do this. So I contacted Marquette, which is my old elementary and middle school, and the administration seemed really excited about this program. They were, go for it. But then came the issue of finding a local rescue group that would be able to either get dogs to the school or if I would be able to get students to the dogs. I probably contacted over 20 local rescue groups. Less than half even responded to my emails or voice messages. I did eventually find one called Puppy Haven. However, they're such a new group, only started in the last few years, that they simply didn't have enough resources to help at the time. I then contacted larger groups such as ARF and PAL, which you might recognize those names. They're usually at PetSmart all the time. But they really didn't have, like, with all of the COVID restrictions, they were unable to help me at that time. I did actually try to contact the PetSmart Corporation just to see if I could use their dog training centers since they weren't using them, so empty space, and it would be easy to get the students to the local rescues that were at PetSmart at the time. But I was unable to do that as well. I eventually found a rescue group, the Tulsa Humane Society, and they were all for it. We were going to go there 2 Saturdays for about an hour from 9 to 10, and we had everything set up until the Friday before that first Saturday, when somebody ran into their building at 3 a.m. Nobody was hurt because nobody was there, and they just did the lobby. So none of the animals were injured either, which was a good thing. But I now had a big decision to make. Do I cancel, or do I try to find a location and dogs in a matter of hours? I did end up, thanks to my mom and grandma, who have lots of connections, I was able to move my program to the Marquette School playground, and my grandma was able to help me corral rescue dogs together. Now, most of the dogs I used were not in the rescue group at the moment. They had already been through the rescue system and had been adopted by that point, but the program still serves its purpose. These were actually pictures from the first Saturday. I had 6 dogs and about 12 kids showed up, which was actually a lot more than I was expecting. So I was really excited at how well everything turned out. The next Saturday, I had fewer kids, but everything was still great, and I got lots of positive feedback from parents and kids. One parent actually told me that their son had a slight fear of dogs, and this program really helped him learn that not all dogs are vicious. These dogs were more concerned about getting pets and treats than they were about there were actually kids there. They were more worried about getting attention. Now, even though I struggled a whole bunch getting this program set up, it was worth it, in my opinion, because I made people happy, I made the dogs happy, everybody benefited from this program. I was able to make a difference in my community, even if it was a really small difference. I impacted people's lives. Even if I only made one person smile, I think I would still go through all of this again, because it was really meaningful to me in combining 2 things I loved, and it did help other people. I mean, dogs were deemed man's best friend after all. And novelist George Eliot once said, "Animals are such agreeable friends. They ask no questions, and they pass no criticisms." Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Jamie. So the Shelter Buddies from the Humane Society of Missouri actually had an entire 30-page document of how to make your own program like this. So mine is modeled very much like that one. There were a couple other programs that I looked into, but that was the biggest, most organized, and they did have a how-to guide to set up your own. Ellie. So there was only one dog that was up for adoption at that point. Most of these dogs, or 2 of them were actually mine, that we had rescued. But one family was really looking into adopting that dog, but they had just moved, so they couldn't take on that responsibility at the moment. But, yeah. Yes. Very few actually. Maybe only 2 or 3 families that came actually had animals of their own at home. So this was really some of the kids, because some of them were quite young, just learning how to read and reading the 2-sentence books. But this was really some of their first experiences with dogs. So, yep. Jamie? I think if I had a lot of free time, because this took a lot of time and energy to set up, if I have the time, I would like to set up a more permanent program. I did only do 2 weekends, and I would like to see this go further in the future. No. All right. Well, if that's it, thank you very much.
Oh, Elizabeth, did you want your mask? Not that but probably want to put that back up. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. Great project, great presentation. Our 4th presenter of the night. We've got a packed couple of weeks here. Our 4th presenter of the night is Maggie Turner. So let me get Maggie's pulled up. Okay. Maggie is the daughter of Kathy and Scott Turner. Bishop Kelly, she is an award-winning member of the speech and debate team, the mock trial team, also an award-winning member of the mock trial team. She is the NHS induction officer. She received last year the Outstanding AP Language and Composition Student Award. Maggie loves to act. She also likes to do tech work and volunteer as a summer camp counselor at the Clark Youth Theater. As an actor, she also won the Outstanding Actor Award from, what was the Tulsa organization again that? A Tate Award. Okay, that's what I thought, but I was going to get it wrong. For her role in The Crucible. She is a parishioner at St. Pius Church. She has applied to Mizzou, UNC Chapel Hill, and the University of Maryland. She plans to study journalism. Broadcast or print? Broadcast journalism in the fall. Ladies and gentlemen, Maggie Turner.
So, what is directing? Is it controlling the operations of, managing or governing? Is it that one job that you always see at the end of movie credits, but let's be honest, you have no clue what they actually do? I mean, Best Director is always one of the last Oscars awarded, and whatever wins Best Picture tends to also win Best Director, right? But what do directors even do? I'll be honest, I don't know. My project was over stage directors, so movie directors, I assume are similar, and yes, I will be using mixed metaphors throughout this presentation. But really, what is directing and why is it even important today? First off, I have some clips to show. Oh, are we gonna?
So at the door are my dad's secretaries. The days and the hours and the century. They recognize me and they say, "Go on in." And there he is, all shining and golden, so bright you could barely look at him. And you know what he says to me? He says,
My son,
My son, you are welcome. Speak Phaeton to your father.
We don't have to watch all of that.
easy.
Up. Okay. So what did I just show? So the very first clip was of the Tony Award winning play Metamorphosis, which was written and directed by Mary Zimmerman. And the other clip, well, it's a little student parody version. I think it's winning in my heart, but sadly it does not have any Tony Awards under its belt. But I enjoy it just because it's a nice little, I guess, homage to Mary Zimmerman's creation. However, both of these are also based off the same story. Both of these videos are based off of Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is then based off of Greek and Roman mythology and history. They all share the same story, yet they all take different forms, and they all came out thousands of years later. Directing is important because it allows someone to take a story that is really, really old, honestly, and be able to present it today and be relevant to the point that you can immerse yourself in a play or in a production. Now, I've talked a lot about directing, and directing does in fact take many different styles per each director. But what exactly is my style of directing, since my project was in fact a video essay about directing? Let's see. Oh, it went away. We got this, we got this. The best part.
I can fix this really quick.
I knew it'd be my presentation.
I told you, I mean, we had done so...
I know, that's the entire video, guys, actually.
We had done so well until right at that
We've done
moment.
so well. It's my videos, okay. Can we try this?
Okay, now, let's do this. Let's get out of it real quick. Now let's go back to present.
Should I hit full screen first?
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's do that.
If it'll let you. It might.
Or I could just leave it there, that's fine.
Nope, we're gonna do it. We got it.
Fairy tales.
Say it again.
We grew up with them. We adore them. Pretend to be part of them. It is freaking creepy. I was nerd number 2 in Greece and that girl who screamed at fake birds in the Crucible.
Chemical Romance. Now, it's time for it to get weird.
The fact that the actors are on stage telling a story.
Or run-of-the-mill non-singing play. Except for loosely blocking them. So, she ends up dancing with the Stalker King that just so happens to look just like her father. She got the best of both worlds.
Friends with the captain.
Thought it was a cello, but it's a little too big. If you simply Google the definition of the word directing. But I did take a long list of notes that I used to write my research paper that I wrote 2 weeks before it was due.
Brecht is a playwright.
The art of directing dates back to ancient Greece with the choregas.
Oh, I got these pennies.
I smell pennies.
Oh, no!
No.
Our Lara, as pretty as her mother. Little our Lara, can't tell one from the other.
But remember, this is a play with music, not a musical. And no one knows the difference.
Falling in love again, never wanted
So my style is still trying to find its place in the world. It borders on humor and education and cringe, and it's mostly cringe, but honestly, I did truly enjoy making this. For my project, I made, oh, is it gonna start again? There we go, okay. For my project, I made a 56-minute-long video essay talking about the importance of directing through the play, The Secret of the Wings. And these are a bunch of pictures that I took of the rehearsal process. Now, The Secret in the Wings is a play written and directed by, you guessed it, Mary Zimmerman. No, she did not win anything or became recognized for this play, but I really enjoy it and I think it's really interesting. For my project, I had the outstanding ability to shadow the best Tulsa director, Aaron Scarberry, at the best theater in Tulsa, Clark Youth Theater. Now, for my project, I attended every single rehearsal. And yes, I filmed every single rehearsal. I still pay $3 a month to make my iCloud storage larger to hold all of my video clips from this project. And this is a little clip of every single rehearsal. For my project, I also, I also interviewed Aaron Scarberry about directing. No, I did not think to film my interview with her. I did that a couple months before the actual rehearsal started, but here are all the notes that I took. And yes, I did use this to write my research paper that I did write 2 weeks before it was due. It's a great choice on my part. And then this is another clip.
So what's your name?
We don't need to listen to it. I also interviewed John Crunkleton III. He is the lead technical director at Clark Youth Theater. He helped run the tech for the show and was also an actor in the production. And I just asked him about directing and about what got him into theater in the first place. For this production, I also worked the main spotlight for every performance. Once again, I didn't think to film myself actually working the spotlight. That would have been a very smart idea. So instead, here's just a little clip of the spotlight when it wasn't shaky, so I decided to choose this one. Yeah, that's me. I'm the one up there in that tech booth holding that spotlight on those people. Yeah, was it nerve-wracking? Yes, but I really enjoyed it. Now, all of this wasn't hard for me. I had been doing theater for years, on and off stage. So just having to, I don't know, show up to every rehearsal, be in the tech booth, and be there for every performance, talk to the people, interview them, none of that was hard for me. Now, the real challenge was editing. First off, I would like to thank Mr. Hembry for being one of my main mentors for this project and for teaching me how to edit. And also, I'd like to thank my father for spending $20 a month so that I could have Premiere Pro. Also, Father, happy birthday. Oh no, the thing went away again. Right on the birthday slide. It's my presentation. I just wanted to wish happy birthday.
We got it. Don't worry. It's coming. It's coming.
This is my present to you.
It's a pretty great present, too. I've seen it.
How long has it been off? I didn't even notice.
Just 2 seconds.
Okay,
like, you
good.
literally
I
clicked to
didn't
the
know
slide
it's
and
been
then
off
it
like
went
a
off.
while.
No, you literally clicked and then it went off.
See?
Okay. Wait, but then it does great things. Okay, there you go. Now you're back.
Spins. There he goes. It is his actual birthday, by the way. Just want to make that clear. I really did enjoy editing this project, but I would say time management was my biggest issue. It would take me like an hour just to upload a clip because I had a lot of technical difficulties, and another hour just to edit like 2 seconds of a clip, and then half the time my My clips are just like this. It says shaky like her love life, by the way, if you're wondering. With the rest of my technical difficulties, I had a lot. First off, my PC that I was editing this project on decided to just stop working altogether. So I had to then transfer all of my clips and my files onto a flash drive. And then later on, I went to go back onto my computer to get some more clips that I'd forgotten to transfer. And my PC just decided to delete literally everything on my computer. So that was fun. But it all worked out. And then I had issues where I tried to edit at the school since I needed a computer to edit on. But apparently the Premiere Pro was a different version, so I couldn't edit at school. I had issues just trying to give my project to Miss Tyler to review to see if this was even plausible enough to be my overall project. And in the end, I ended up having to use my dad's work computer just to finish my project. Also, Dad, once again, will it load? Happy birthday. He's 38, I swear, guys. But really, that really did help, and I was able to actually finish my project. One of my other issues was trying to take the ideas in my head for what I wanted to do and to transfer that onto editing, something that I was still fairly new at. So a lot of my clips weren't as well, they weren't as cinematic as I'd wanted with my editing skills. I tried my best, but it didn't give off the effect that I wanted. But hey, I'm growing. One day, I will be on the movie scene, I tell you. But still, I really did learn a lot from this project. Come on, slideshow. Just more clips. Oh, it went away again. It's my presentation, guys. It's my video clips. We're good. We got this.
Hit escape.
Hit escape. Can I do it?
You figured it out.
Do I know how to do it this time?
Remember,
It's source? Yes. It's desktop. And it's
VK Commons. Beautiful. Now just hit present. Click
We're
out of there
doing it.
again and hit present
We're
again.
doing it, guys. We're almost through, I swear. Okay. These are just some pictures of the editing process. That's the clip that I filmed. But like what I was saying, I really did learn a lot about this process. And I learned about just how in-depth directing really is. It's more than just a person standing in the audience yelling, hey, you, project more. You actor, yeah, get off the stage. You're not in the scene anymore. It's really about taking a story and being able to present it in a way that would make it immersive for an audience just to even watch. Directing is really important. It's one of those jobs that you don't really think about, because whenever you go to see a play or a musical, who do you see? You see the actors. You see the people standing and performing, and you cry and you laugh, but you don't think about the people who are backstage actually presenting the show. Directing is more than just a person telling an actor how to act. It's about analyzing a script to the most minute detail so that they are able to understand it and be able to present it in the world that they wish to create. It's about working with actors and making sure that they know exactly what type of acting they want for each scene. It's about making sure that every little thing flows. The costumes, the lights, the sounds, the backgrounds, the settings, everything. Because the main job of the director, really, is to entertain the audience. It's to make sure that not for 1 second the audience loses their sense of disbelief and that they are able to stay entertained the entire time. I don't want to discredit acting. I mean, I love acting. I think it's a lot of fun. I love having the center of attention, if you can't tell from tonight. But I think it's just really good to recognize that there are people working backstage, not just the director, but the lead technical director. We also had a musical director for this show. And we had people working backstage who are helping with quick changes and for building the sets. All of that is still really important. And we just tend to overlook it because they are not the main ones whenever we go to see a production. To quote Brother Bernadine, and yes, Ellie Spielman did in fact steal my Brother B quote, I want that to be clear. I initially was gonna say, to act is easy, to think is hard. We see actors and we assume that they are the most important people of every show, when in reality, the director and the backstage crew are the ones pulling the strings. They are the ones lifting the curtain, and they are the ones actually putting on the production. Thank you. Just real quick, I would like to just give out some thanks. Definitely to everyone at Clark Youth Theater, just for letting me be there and awkwardly hold my phone up to people while they're just acting and messing up the entire time. I'd especially love to thank Erin Scarberry once again, who is the lead director, and I learned a lot from her, and John Crunkleton, who is the lead technical director, Tammy Slack, the lead musical director, Ben Despain, who worked up in the tech booth with me, Casey Sack, who was the main backstage person and was also the stage manager. Trey LaFurs, he was just kind of there. He was in the background and he helped a lot with quick changes and just was helping the morale of the entire show. I would also like to thank my mentors, of course, Russ Hembry, who was my main mentor for this project, Miss Tyler, who just for being the Scholars Director and just for, I don't know, being an amazing person. My mom, because my dad's had too much attention during this production, but she also really helped me for this, and of course to all my friends and everyone who had supported me during this project. So. Oh, okay. Oh, Aaron. Oh, that's a good question. See, I started this in the summer before my PC decided just to stop, and I got like 30 minutes in. That took me about, I want to say 3 weeks. And it'd be like 4-hour like periods of me editing, and it'd be like, okay, edited 3 minutes today. I think it's been 4 hours. I'm good for today. So how long is that in total if it's 56 minutes? That's a lot of math in my head. I don't know. It definitely took me a very long time to edit. The main issue was uploading the videos from my phone to my computer, which that alone would take like 5 minutes to upload a 2-minute clip, which a lot of my clips were more than 2 minutes. I don't know if I can give you exact time, but it was a lot. It was many months for me to finish this. Other questions? Ellie? It's okay. I forgive you. Oh, you know I didn't. When I was, interesting fact actually, they had to build an extension to the tech booth to add a second spotlight, because 2 spotlights were used in the show. I was on the main one. It's not really up for arm strength because how I was leveled, I was on a little like step so I could be higher up than it. But it definitely did get very hot. Do not wear sweatshirts when doing this, which is my main attire. So that was hard on me. Yes, Jamie.
What was the most fun part of your entire project?
My entire project. I would say definitely attending the rehearsals. Even if I wasn't in the show, I was friends with a lot of the people on the cast, and I had been at Clark for years, so I knew everyone. And it was just kind of really fun to experience the show in a different way. Like, I've done tech for shows before, but when you do tech, you show up a week before the performances, you're in the tech booth the entire time, and you're just like, oh, I hit play at this part, got it. But for this, I really got to, I don't know, just look at it in a different way rather than being the actor, just being in the tech booth. I got to kind of look at like how a director looks at it, which I thought was very interesting. Any other questions? No? All good. Watch the computer just be fine for the rest of the night.
Probably. You know, there's one more, so. Technical difficulties abound. I told you it was going to happen tonight. So thank you guys so much. Our last presenter of the evening is Erin. But Erin, before I get to your introduction, I also just wanted to say, you all have impeccable style at your house. When I watched Maggie's documentary, every room that she filmed in, I was like, what is that? It's amazing. So you all must have the most fantastic house. I just wanted to let you know. I'm not a creepy stalker. I just happened to like every scene I was just kind of like, wow, like blown away by something in the room. So that was also, an entertaining part of the process. So okay, so that's my story for the night. All right, so Erin. So our final presentation of the night is Erin Miller LeCaire. Erin is the daughter of Anna Miller and Tim LeCaire. She is a goalkeeper for the Bishop Kelly soccer team, and she's actually played club soccer for many years in addition to her years at Bishop Kelly. She's a member of NHS, and she is also an AP scholar. Her freshman year, she received an award for perfect attendance, which I love, because not very many people get that. That's pretty impressive. She is a wonderful artist, and she also plays the piano. She enjoys spending time with her family, especially the nightly walks that they took together during quarantine. Erin is a parishioner at St. Pius and a volunteer at Catholic Charities. She applied to the University of Arkansas, WashU in St. Louis, the University of Chicago, and Yale. She is planning to attend the University of Arkansas and study biology. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, last but not least, Erin Miller LeCaire. Wipe that off for you. There you go.
First off, I want to say, what a presentation to end with. I mean, the whole night has just been like amazing stories, a theater play, film photography, and then we get to murder. I apologize. Okay. Tragic events such as genocide must be remembered and taught about. The victims of genocides deserve to have their story told, deserve to be memorialized, not placed in an obscure bookshelf in the library of the world's history. In knowing genocides, however, and how they happen, society will be able to recognize when history might be repeating itself once again, and through conscious action can prevent these tragedies from reoccurring. Through my project, I found that genocide can happen anywhere, at any time, and to anyone. And before I progress further, I might as well give you some background. So, shortly after World War II, for years, Britain had colonized India and what later became Pakistan and Bangladesh. The citizens of India decided that they wanted to become their own country, and after World War II, Britain decided, okay, we'll give you your own country. So they quickly drew some borders within 6 weeks, which is far too short of a time period to really draw borders accurately and efficiently. So they largely drew it based on religion, either Hindu or Muslim, and the areas that Pakistan, which at the time was West and East Pakistan eventually became Bangladesh. Pakistan was where all of the Muslims lived, and India was where Hindus lived. And because these people who had, for ages, lived together with each other, Hindu and Muslim, next door neighbors, overnight, they became the minority in their community. So that caused millions of people to just out from their homes and migrate. And it was a very bloody and tragic process. Millions of people died. This partitioning of India directly led into the Bangladesh genocide that happened in the 1970s. So West Pakistan was the central government of power, and East Pakistan held all the trade, all of the industry, and yet they didn't have any political power as the government was based in West Pakistan. So West Pakistan began to dehumanize members of East Pakistan, limit their expression of culture, and other warning signs that generally lead to genocide. And in 1970, this operation called Operation Searchlight began, in which soldiers of West Pakistan went to East Pakistan and murdered scholars and soldiers and other people who were learned or were artists in East Pakistan. In over 9 months, over 3 million people were killed. A very, very, very short period of time. And in addition to the partitioning of India, this is quite a few people lost to a very bloody and just horrible process. Okay, so awareness. To first be vigilant of a potential tragedy, such as the Bangladesh genocide, one must first accept that things like this can happen with anyone. There is not a particular kind of person that causes tragedies, but rather a chain of events that lead down a road of ruin. An example of this would be the Rwandan genocide, where people, next door neighbors, were murdering their neighbors' brothers, mothers, fathers. These people didn't know that the next day they would be murdering their neighbors and their friends. There are signs to genocide, but you never think that you would be the one that would be a part of something so horrible. And society. This topic is important to society as a whole because once members can accept that they are capable of perpetrating tragedies, then they can be aware of the warning signs that might pop up in their own society. So my goal for this project was to learn that not a specific kind of person cooperates in events such as genocide. So this means that I have the ability, along with everybody else on this earth, to be active in a movement that results in the catastrophe and death of others. And through my research, I wanted to know how genocide happens and what I need to be aware of in case the signs of one begin to show. And my hope for this project is that I can share with all of you my findings so that you might be also more aware and able to recognize when tragic consequences are looming. So as I mentioned, the partitioning of India before, that was the enormity of my sophomore paper, which covered the partitioning of India, which I mentioned before became a movement of the people of India to be free from British rule. So the freeing of the Indian people from British rule was a well-intentioned choice. It was just executed very badly. And this shows that they can even good intentions can lead to horrendous consequences, and even if it seems like we're doing the right thing, we still need to be aware of the situations and the events following our actions. I am passionate of this subject because I want to be able to acknowledge warning signs to bad outcomes and recognize how I may be a perpetrator in the problem, and I hope that my research might help other people become more aware of the capacity of humanity for great harm against others so that they also might be aware of red flags. It was very difficult for me to come to terms. I still struggle with coming to terms that I could be part of something that harms other people. It's very difficult to come to terms with as in general, especially people we care about, knowing that we could harm them. It's even harder to accept that we are very capable of being the people who have participated in the Bangladesh genocide. If we can't accept that we can perpetrate a genocide, then when the circumstances are ripe for a genocide to occur, we will again refuse to acknowledge those flags and history will repeat itself. So some successes that I experienced in my research was, through the research I compiled, I was able to analyze the events of the partition of India and the Bangladesh genocide and dig deeper into the influences that played into the setting up of these two tragedies. And sources. So although this topic is not well known, I had not known that this existed until right before I decided I was going to do my project over it. With the help of the internet and my mentor, Miss Bendel, who is an amazing mentor, she really helped me out a lot. I found a lot of useful resources with which to pull information and sources that I feel flesh out the paper and help to explain what happened. So some failures. There is no single reason for genocide, and that's what makes it so hard to pin down. In my paper, I explored a few aspects that led to the genocide, but in reaching a singular conclusion as to why it happened is difficult. However, one aspect I do cover, and the thesis of my paper, the idea that the partition of India led to the Bangladesh genocide, is proved in my paper. And what I learned from this was my goal was to learn the warning signs that lead to genocide and I feel like I accomplished that in my paper. And listed here are some of these red flags I identified. So, feeling as if something is not right, dehumanization of a group, limiting expression of that group's culture, labeling them as other to alienate them, and using negatively charged language in talking about a group. I hope others that read this list will be able to recognize these warnings when they occur. The biggest skill I developed in this paper, in this project, was time management. I had my senior year to write 13 pages of the rest of my research paper. I already had 9 pages accomplished before in my sophomore paper, in which I added to that to create my entire research paper. And with junior year, you have so much going on. You're taking AP tests, you're doing the SAT, and it feels like you have no time, and yet you have to complete this project by May. Meeting deadlines every month meant that I had to plan time to work on my project, which helped me to manage my workload and still complete my paper to the best of my ability. And some days that was a struggle. I mean, I'm sure Katie can attest, writing block is a thing. Like, there's some days you just do not want to open your computer and you know you have to. So this is advice I would give to anyone working on a research paper or any writing project, is do not let it sit. If you let it sit, it'll build up to the last minute, and it'll feel like a mountain of work to get done in a few weeks. And one thing that I really found in this paper was chipping away at it 1 month at a time, 1 paper a month, 1 page a month is what I meant. It really helps you to stay on track and feel like you're getting somewhere and not feeling too overwhelmed by what you still have to do. So, accountability matters to a global society. By holding others accountable, we as a global society can minimize and in best scenarios prevent bad outcomes that naturally occur in all cultures. Through staying cognizant of the beginnings of bad paths, we can build a better world for everybody on this planet. And in the future, the discoveries I made in my project can also be used around the globe. An all-encompassing body such as the UN could expand on legislation pertaining to these types of issues, genocide prevention, war prevention, other such problems, to better address them when they arise in any country, and hopefully stop these horrific events from occurring, or at least mitigate the damage as much as possible. I will leave you with this quote by Brother Bernardine: "As a living magnet, you inevitably attract people, events, and circumstances into your life that harmonize with your dominant thoughts. It starts with the mind. Your thoughts lead to actions, which attract certain people, opportunities, and events. If we believe that we are not capable of participating in such a horrific event as genocide, then when these warnings appear, we will be blind to them, or maybe even ignore them, aiding these flags in progressing to real action and eventual tragedy. If we believe that there are only specific situations in which tragedy can arise, then we will not notice the violent winds of the oncoming storm that wipes out everything that we hold value to. We must be aware of our thoughts, our actions, and how they have consequences on the world around us." I would like to thank Ms. Bendel for mentoring me and helping me to find resources and edit my paper, and just being an all-around great person. Ms. Tyler for being a wonderful support while I was working on my project. She is such a wonderful person to talk to and to tell all of your worries and doubts, and she's great. And my parents, who helped me put into words what I wanted to say. There's a lot of things going on in your mind sometimes, and it's amazing how you can just talk to your parents and they'll tell you exactly what you're thinking. And you're like, how did you know? And my friends, for being a group I could relate to when I was stressed about meeting deadlines. I love you all. So thank you, and does anybody have any questions? Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's a flaw of humanity that we love to put ourselves into groups and to stay attached to those groups so strongly that when we meet other people who don't vibe in Gen Z terms with that group, that it's very hard to even come to terms with. So I think in general, just throughout history, we've seen that, these warning signs don't always lead to genocide, but it is a very strong sign that bad things could occur if we do not take action and try to coexist with these people. And so, yes, my short answer is yeah, I have definitely seen these warning signs, and I try to stay cognizant of what I believe and what I say to other people to try to stay aware of things that might be stirring up really bad things. Yes, Emma. Why did I know somebody would ask this question? Okay, I should have put a picture on here, but there is a graph that I saw. My mother showed it to me, and it is essentially a graph of throughout history all of the major events in the world that have killed off large amounts of people. And obviously there are the big ones there, like the Holocaust and the Rwandan genocide and the USSR when they sent all their people to Siberia, and Genghis Khan, even way back to Genghis Khan. And I saw there's this little box that said something related to most deaths in the shortest amount of time. And I saw this thing called the Bangladesh genocide, which was 3 million to 5 million people in 9 months. And I was like, I have never heard of this before. And I looked it up on the internet thinking, I would really love to learn more about this, because this is a major event that I have never heard of. So that is how I got the idea for this project. Yes, Ellie? The research I did was mostly focused on showing how the partitioning of India led to the Bangladesh genocide. So I didn't really explore acts of de-escalation that you could take to prevent genocide, but that is something that I would love to learn more about. Yes, Jamie? I would say a solid 7. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I think I'll give the floor back to Ms. Tyler.
You're fine. Right? It's so funny when you take it off. I did that the other day. I literally got up out of my office, walked all the way down the hall, and went, oh, I didn't have my mask on the whole way. It's amazing how quickly that happens. Well, thank you guys so much. So let's have not only one more round of applause for our presenters, but also for their families who have supported them for these 4 years, and who braved the social distancing of the night and came out and listened to all the presentations. So big round of applause for both the families and the presenters. Thank you guys so much. And I also want to give a giant thank you to BK Media and Mr. Russ Hembry, who is live streaming our event for us, right? And the links that all of your students have access to, and that I think I sent the families as well, those links you can go back later and watch. So if you want to watch the presentations again, just use that same link and you can tune back in and watch it and share it with anybody that you want, right? So show all your friends. So we are back next week for our final 5, right, of presentations. In theory, we're in the STC auditorium, so that we can have, again, kind of more social distancing and spread out. So that's kind of that, and that's our last big event for the year, are those final 5 that are coming out. So thank you guys so much for coming. And if you are a student who attended and you are not one of the 5 presenters, you get to hang around and help me put the things back on the tables. So don't go anywhere. So you guys have a fantastic evening and live Jesus in our hearts forever.